all had a good sleep and took in all the information from yesterday. There was thank you. There was a lot of information for many of you. I think it was very interesting, and we learn every single day. As mentioned earlier, I've got quite a couple of years of experience, I won't say how many exactly, in the industry. So just a little bit about myself. I grew up in Europe, moved to South Africa, well, Africa really, 24 years ago, and made that my home. But started my career in the hospitality industry and do a lot of consulting work in the industry for tourism and hospitality nowadays, and do a lot of work with governments as well, consulting on their tourism products, how they can improve and what they should do. And hence a lot of my questions yesterday to the panel. So, as I said, I wear a couple of different hats. I'm a consultant, and I consult for this company here as well. We are one of the friendliest companies around, for the simple reason we greet you before you even know it. We recently rebranded to I, and we've got an interesting product. So let's talk about that a little bit later. And I'm very glad I came up after you. I'm pretty sure that everybody in this room is in the mood for a nice trip after this advert for the travel corporation that we just had. Very well done. You get some business from this, I'm sure. But the main reason I'm excited about this is that we are talking about experiences. And what do our guests want? Now, as you can see, this is also part of my presentation, in a slightly different form though. So initially, let's start and talk about the international tourism industry. As you can see, and as we discussed yesterday quite a few times, it's one of the very few industries in the world that's growing year on year and makes massive contributions to the GDP. So one of the main topics is sustainability and responsibility. And there is tons of events around this. And at all these events, what do we talk about? We talk about saving energy. We talk about not using single-use plastics. All these types of things, all eco-related. We're talking about communities, assisting the communities. I 100% agree with those things. They're very, very important. But one thing we don't talk about a lot is profitability. It's part of the SDGs. But the moment you talk about sustainability and you talk about profits, people seem to get upset. And I don't get that. For the simple reason is that if you are not profitable, you are not sustainable, you are not going to have jobs, you're not going to grow your business, you're not going to sustain anything. So profitability, for me, is number one. How you get there and how you do it, there's lots of things to discuss and we can be here for weeks. But please, when we talk sustainability and responsibility, accountability, let's not forget about profits. Anyway, let's move on. So in May last year, I presented at another conference in Mauritius. It was the International Sustainability and Digitization Conference. We had a lot of different ministers there from all over the world. And we discussed these items. So the reason I bring this up, and I don't like reading off slides, but I'm going to have to do it, is that this highlights the massive importance of what we're doing. So at this conference, a declaration was signed by a lot of ministers and people from the UNWTO and so on. So what did we speak about? Economic potential of tourism, whereby the tourism sector accounts for 10% of global GDP. 10%, that's a massive percentage. 10% of total employment worldwide and 7% of the world's exports, equivalent to $1.4 trillion. It's a lot of money. And that was in 2016, and it's growing. International tourist arrivals have increased from 25 million in 1950 to 1.322 billion in 2070, and is expected to exceed 1.8 billion in 2030. Many countries and especially the small islands as we spoke about, such as Mauritius, Seychelles, Maldives, the only thing they've got is tourism. So it's massively important. There was the Conference of Parties 21 that took place some years ago, and there's a couple of things there. Bearing in mind that all stakeholders need to acknowledge that sustainable tourism implies inter alia, the optimum environmental resources, respect for the social, cultural authenticity of the host communities, like we spoke about, viable long-term economic operations, profits, the provision of socio-economic benefits. So there's quite a couple of things, all relating back to the SDGs we discussed yesterday. Considering that tourism is one of the driving forces of economic growth globally, reaffirming that tourism must adopt sustainable consumption and production, develop and implement tools to monitor sustainable impacts, and to promote local culture and products. Exactly what we're discussing today. Further reaffirming that especially for small islands, developing states, coastal and marine tourism rely on healthy marine ecosystems and the promotion of an integrated coastal zone, All very interesting. But there comes one of the main parts. And this is going to lead me into my main presentation. Being aware of a new generation of tourists, Generation Y, Millennials, and Generation Z. Everybody's still talking about Generation X. It's way in the past. Because these people, and it's a lot of the people sitting here in the room, will be the future travelers. 50% of the travelers by 2025, which is only 6 years away, will be these people that are now in school. We need to start thinking on how are we catering for those people. They've got different needs, different wants than the people we are catering for right now. So, I said I don't like reading off slides, so for whoever is interested in the full declaration, you can get it on this website here. So, from a different angle, what do our guests want? I 100% agree with Nicholas, what he was saying earlier. All those things are correct. But what they also want is technology. As it said here, some research was done by Oracle, and 35% of guests say they actually want to be able to schedule when their room gets serviced. It's very nice here in the hotel when I leave, and I must say the Taj is giving proper 5-star service. I'm really enjoying my stay. But I have to press a little button in my room to tell them, and then I must hope they see it. People want to be able to schedule when does the room get serviced. Or they would like to get a notification. 64% of US guests said that they want or think it's very or extremely important that hotels invest in technology. Let's think about travel. We spoke about luxury travel. For many people around the world, and specifically in Africa, and I'm sure it's the same in Asia, travel is still a luxury. So when they save for a whole year to take their family on a well-deserved holiday, and they get to a hotel, and the Wi-Fi is crappy, or have to pay for it, there's no satellite television, because those are all the basic home creatures that we are getting used to now. There might be a lot of poverty, but there's very few people that don't have access to internet. There's very few people that don't have some sort of television at home. When I go travel and I save the whole year to go on a holiday, I want those core basic creatures comforts that I've got at home, plus a lot more. So why, if I go to a hotel, do I not get quality Wi-Fi? Or why do I have to pay for it? I mean, come on, this is 2019. So, I'm missing a slide somehow. Because Deloitte has done a research where in 2010, where they found a certain amount of money is invested in technology by the industry. They went back to that same research in 2015 and actually found that all those years later, and there's so much more technology out there, percentage-wise, the industry is actually starting to spend less money on technology when it's becoming more and more important. Yes, things have become a little bit cheaper because of mass production and so on, but the reality is there's so much out there, there's so much more. Why are we spending less money on it? It makes no sense whatsoever. So thinking about this, there's a couple of reasons, in my opinion, excuses, and I'll tell you now why the industry is not investing. So as I said, there's a company, we do some technology for hotel rooms. I'll talk about it a bit later. And the feedback we're getting from hotels, why they are not investing, are the following. Capital investment required. Okay, technology can be expensive. It can cost a lot of money up front. Sure. Now let's think about a hotel. This hotel has got 493 beds, I think. Every couple of years they have to replace the mattresses. What does that cost? The pool maintenance, soft refurbs every couple of years. It costs millions of dollars. Do you think this hotel is going to think twice whether they should do it or not, or where they're going to find the money? They find it, they do it, it's done. So why don't you do it for technology? Should be just as easy. So think, if we're talking about capital investment, if you don't find the money, but your neighbor does, how much money does it cost you in lost business that went to your neighbors because they did invest? Just a question I would like to ask. Loss of personal contact. So now we implement all this technology and we lose the touch with the guest. Really? I travel a lot. I stay at some of the same hotels on a regular basis. Every single time I get to the hotel, I have to give them my credit card details, a copy of my passport, complete handwritten, a little form with my address, where do I come from, national, all that nonsense, which is on their system. I've given it to them. It takes 5 minutes. The receptionist, instead of talking to me, looks down on a screen. That couple of minutes, if you use technology, can be used to talk to me, tell me about the great facilities the hotel has to offer, book me a spa treatment, book me in the restaurant. Now that time is lost. So I do not believe personally that the correct use of technology will take away any personal contact. It will actually enhance it. Lack of understanding. Okay, we don't know what it's about. There's so much out there. We overload it with information. True, there's a lot out there. Things are changing all the time. But I would like to introduce you guys to something very interesting that's been discovered and developed some time ago. It's called the internet. You can find anything you want there. Take some time, research it. You do it for everything else. You can do the same for your technology. It's really not that hard. Complexity of change. It's very difficult to implement technology. Interesting. I don't agree, once again. And one of the reasons why people say it's so complex and difficult to implement is because, unfortunately, inherently, people are lazy. And I often get lambasted for saying that, but it's the truth. So again, let's relate this to hotel industry. Implementation of technology is complicated. It's a process. Sure. Every hotel has got one or more restaurants. All these restaurants got a menu. Seasonally, on a very regular basis, the menu gets changed. That's what guests want. They don't want to eat the same thing all the time. So what's involved with that? The chef needs to do some research. What do my guests want? Where am I going to get the produce? What is it going to cost me? Right, so he has to do research. Then he has to do his costings. What is it going to cost? What is the cost of making it? What's the cost of producing it? And what price do I sell it for so I can make my profits? Once that's done, he has to train his staff, front of house staff. They need to know what they're selling. You've got your chefs in the kitchen. They need to learn how to make these new dishes. So there's training involved. You have to create new collateral because there's new menus that need to be printed. The people need to know. And then, obviously, you have to execute. And in some cases, if there's a massive change between the old and the new menu, which does happen, you actually have to change the whole workflow of your equipment in the kitchen to make sure that you can still produce properly and quickly enough. It's a massive process. But nobody thinks twice of changing their menu because it's something that you just have to do. So why should you not change your technology? Measurement of ROI, return on investment. It's important. We want to spend money, but we need to make money back. How do you measure the return of investment of technology? Some things you can, some things you can't. It's reality. I'm not going to say that every piece of technology that you're going to implement in your hotel or in your MICE environment is going to give you a direct ROI. But let me ask you this question. The youngsters in the room won't really know, but some time ago, TVs did not have a remote. You had to get up and change the channel or the volume or whatever. Then one company out there got intelligent, and they thought, well, you know what, it would be so nice if we can sit down and change it. And there's the remote control. Now let me tell you one thing. That company did not know what the return on the investment is going to be. They thought they'll probably sell some more TVs. They don't know how much. They don't know why and all of that. So they couldn't really measure the exact ROI. I can tell you one thing. The companies that did not change and did not create a remote control for their business went out of business. So measuring ROI, yes, in general terms, it's important, but it shouldn't be your make or break because it might just get you out of business. So for me now, it's my turn to do a bit of advertising. As I said, our company, we do some products for the hospitality trade. One of those is these handy devices. It's a smartphone for the hotel rooms, got a little functionality. But what this is about is not just you guys listening to me and hearing why technology is important. It's a little video clip where the hotel GMs that have implemented technology from our side actually talk about the benefits.
To me, the challenge of a growing customer expectation, hospitality industry is turning to technology. It's now more flexible, more digital, more connected.
What's great about technology is that it can help us to facilitate the human connection, and that's what Handy does so well. The fact that I'm able to stay in touch with them all the time, we can communicate promotions or specials to them, they can communicate with us easily, they can literally stand at the top of Table Mountain and order room service. I mean, where else in the world could you have such an experience?
Guest experience, that's what we are looking here at the Serras. We are always looking to go a little bit extra mile. Handy has given the possibility to them to have unlimited access, unlimited connectivity. So this means that they can call anytime, absolutely for free, all countries around the world. Being able to have such a gadget that can allow you to call home, there has been another wow effect to our journey.
As the hotel owner, we're always constantly finding ways to upgrade our rooms, our interaction with our guests. Handy has helped us extremely well with understanding our guest behavior and the analytics behind our guests. Handy has allowed us to have a technology where the guests can order room service. This has streamlined the entire process of ordering and also upselling the food and beverage items to the guests.
Our TripAdvisor score has improved since we have deployed Handy in all our guest rooms. Guests, thanks to the instant feedback feature, they love to and they are able to communicate with the hotel, with the member of the staff. We can deliver a better service and meet all the guest needs.
Having a Handy device in the room is seen as a perk, but I have no doubt that guests will start coming to expect it from hotels very soon.
All right. So it's not just me telling you this. There's some hotels that have implemented this. And as we said, it's all about the experience. And when I say some hotels, we've got these devices in 600,000 hotel rooms around the world in 80 countries. So I think that shows you that technology, and this is just one form of it, is very needed. Now, do people use it? Do they want it? And I always get very upset when we go to new clients or potential new clients and they question the usage rate of the technology. And then I say, well, you put a phone in your room. This old dinosaur thing that sends in the corner. Do you know how many people use that? That hairdryer you put in the room, how many people use it? How many people still use the TV? Because many people stream on their laptops and whatever. Do you question all those suppliers in the same way as you're asking me? But anyway, we've got stats. We know that 86% of the guests actually use the device. There's an activation flow they have to go through. 86% of guests use the device. We also know that on average they use it 67 minutes a day. That's a lot of time. And then 71% part of the technology, you can take it with you as long as you're a guest of the hotel, actually use it outside of the property. So that says a lot. So people use it. Now who uses it? Profiles, male, female, almost 50-50. Leisure, business. There's a bit of a gap there, but it's still there. 25-32 is the age categories. Younger, older, male, female, business, leisure. Everybody uses it. We've got high network travelers, 25% domestic, 75% international. So especially as a foreigner coming to a new country, not knowing the local services, where to find them, it's all on there. But more importantly, roaming is still expensive unless you're in Europe. And it's expensive, and sometimes it's difficult to get a local SIM. So it really works for people, and especially for international travelers. And then it's just the top 5, says the countries that are traveling the most. India is right up there. So what's next? We all know about AI, artificial intelligence. There's robots out there. But one thing I want to mention is if we fear this basic form of technology that we are exposed to today, there's talking about the MICE industry. There's technology out there where they put cameras around the room like this, and especially where there's product sales involved, where these cameras will look at the individual people in the room. They will check your face. They will scrape the internet for your social media profiles. They will know everything about you. They will look at your expressions, your body temperature. They will actually see who's ready to purchase a product and who is not. This is how intrusive technology is getting. And whether we like it or not, we are not going to change it. It's there, and it's there to stay, and it's going to get more intrusive. So I recommend, be careful what you put out there, but other than that, embrace it. Use it to your advantage, and deal with it. So normally I end here. It's always impossible, seems impossible until it's done. A famous saying by Nelson Mandela. I would hope that everybody knows in this room who Nelson Mandela was. Otherwise, come and speak to me afterwards. This is where I normally end. But I'm going to do something slightly different. We were told we're going to, Dara isn't here today for those that were here yesterday. And you all thought you're off the hook, but you're not. So what I want you to do is quickly stand up for me, please. Don't worry, it's not going to be as intense as she had us do. Now, we all stand there, nice and relaxed, arms next to us. And now all would listen to me carefully, please. All try and raise your arms like this. All try and raise your arms. So you're all doing it wrong because you're just following me. I said, please try and raise your arms. Now do it again. So you're all still doing it. Please do not try, just do it, because that's what you're doing. Don't try. If you're trying, it's not happening. You're actually raising your arms. There's a difference. Just do it. Don't be scared. Implement. Thank you. Don't know if there's any questions.
Excellent. I think that was a great presentation, and I think you got quite a few hoteliers like me, you know, I'm one of them, really thinking about, you know, your what you told me, and when I'm on the flight back day after, I'm going to think, okay, what are the technology areas we need to invest in? Yeah. Thank you so much, Barry. I think that was a fantastic presentation. Any questions anybody would have? Yeah, Lisa there.
Of course.
I'm in it today. Thank you for the presentation, Barry. It was very, very informative. I've just got 2 questions, hopefully, this time. The first question is, it was in relation to what you were saying about the islands, that all they have is tourism. So if all they have is tourism, and we know that climate change is happening and quite a number of them are at risk, how can technology help offset that in some sort of way and safeguard them?
Okay, so technology can be used in different ways. So one of the ways, and I think we've slightly touched on over-tourism yesterday. So over-tourism is one big thing. And that is one of the things you want to protect certain regions with. So one of the things you can do with technology is you look at Twitter, for argument's sake, and you actually create heat maps about what is happening in those areas. And they've done some research where in old areas in the past, they looked at Twitter activities from guests. Because what do people, when they're on holiday, they share information, they tweet and so on when things or events are happening. You can actually see the heat maps where certain areas are increasing activities. And I'm using Twitter as an example. Obviously, you've got Instagram, Facebook, and everything. And all these platforms change all the time. You've got different popular ones now than you'll have later. Reality is you can see activities and create heat maps and look at the activity and where it increases. And if you see it's getting too big, you can actually change that. You can manage the number of trips you're allowed to come in, the airlift, all that type of thing. You can then manage, say, listen, we're getting too many people. It means we've got too many flights coming in, especially with an island that's relatively easy. And you cut down on the airlines coming in and cut the tourism. So that's one way of doing it.
And the next question I have is, how sustainable is the product which you just showed us, the handy product? And I'm not just talking about like your energy usage, but I'm also talking about upgrades. Like, we know that every certain year or couple of months, new phones are coming out and people are just replacing them at an alarming rate. And what's really scary is that less than 2% of cell phones are actually recycled in the world, even though they can be recycled. So how sustainable is this product actually in terms of the use of its resources?
Okay, so a couple of things there. In terms of the product in itself and the service delivery, any business that doesn't develop and improve is not sustainable. So obviously, same with us. If we're not enhancing and adapting our product to the needs in the market, we're not going to be sustainable, so the product is changing. From a more environmental friendly way, initially we were going with hardware, and we still are, and it will still be a component, but we are moving to a solution where this can be app-based as well. So that's number one. But number two is from a social environment, we are taking like you mentioned, every device has got a lifespan. So after about 2 years, when it comes to its economical end of life, it's still quite usable. So we actually take these devices and give them to schools where kids can use them for online learning and so on. There's different ways we bring it into the community. So we extend its life and helping communities to get them connected and help them with the online learning and so on.
And the energy usage?
So energy usage, obviously, the battery is there. Everything needs electricity. So obviously, you try and make it as economic as possible in terms of consumption of the battery life. 2 reasons. One, the longer the battery lasts for the guests, the less they have to charge it. So it's nice and convenient, once again. Secondly, you have to charge it less often. So you look at how the CPUs and so on to make it as economical as possible. But the unfortunate reality is we are going to use electricity.
Have you ever thought about perhaps implementing like a kind of a solar power device on it to mitigate that use of energy?
So we haven't. But have you seen any big, not hotel, sorry, cell phone operator do that? They haven't yet. And there's a reason, no, sure. But there's a reason why. There's a reason why nobody has done that yet. Because of the practicality and the cost factor of it. I mean, those solar panels are so sensitive. Drop your cell phone once and it won't work.
Yeah, it could probably be on the charging device, and then it would kind of go back to what you say, like the look at the Lara.
Where do you charge your device? In your room, right? How much sunlight does it get there? Look.
It's a very interesting thing you're saying, because today hotels, especially say India and Nepal, especially Nepal, in India today, they've actually implemented it, where today, you know, you have a choice to buy power from a different power operator, all right? And today, there are many hotels today. I know, for example, in the Intercontinental Hotel Group, we started buying power from hydro operators. So instead of, most of it is thermal power in India. So hydropower is sustainable power. And the second reason is it's cheaper. All right. So there are options like this. The other thing is today, I had a very interesting presentation just some days back where somebody came to me and said, you put solar power units in your hotel. All right. And I said, yeah, but you know, someday the sun won't come out. Some days, you know, it's going to rain. How does it work? And he said, look, you put on the solar panels and pull electricity from there. You need to withdraw that much less from the grid. So the days you have sunlight, you are actually going to be much lower in terms of cost. And there are government subsidies which help you put those up. And so now my finance actually do a whole calculation on the ROI around that. And so today, when you start looking into source of power, you know, I mean, just adding to what Barry was mentioning, maybe you got green power to charge.
Yeah, and it's
not only that, I think that
let's work because in my camps we are using the solar power from last 10 years for heating the water, and we never face problem even in rainy time. So it's working from last 10 years. Water heating we are using only for heater. Barry, my two questions to you is one, you talk about the centralized data in the hotel so that a check-in, spa and other places it help, and even repeat customers should not face a problem. My question is that after the recent European data protection law, which make more complicated to share the data online before arrival, so how is going to be possible, because there is a law against that, and similarly I believe in Asian countries as well, despite whatever, like we go to the airport, so every time we have to show the passport, despite the passport detail are there. So how this going to help the hotel? So if you just give us some brief about that. And my second question is, when we do the event in Japan, I do lots of MICE event in Japan. So as a MICE operator, what they do, they give me a PHS. I don't know, you know, Mr. Upu? PHS, they give me a PHS, a phone kind of thing, which normally hotel internal team use. Yeah.
So,
And it's very useful. Actually, virtually on a small device, which I hardly charge in 10 days. So it's work because there is nothing to do other than the coordination with the hotel, and it works very perfectly. So the system looks very impressive. We need to have some more details but about the data protection and this PHS thing. So how PHS is the same thing which you are talking about, or it's different?
okay, so today wasn't about the sales pitch. It was about talking about how technology is important for the industry. And this was just one example, which obviously is close to me, so I can use some real data. In terms of the whole protection of data and so on, people are obsessed about this at the moment because it came in, and it is really more applicable to European travelers than international, or other international, I should say. People, again, like I said about the usage and so on of our products, they question us equally much about GDPRS. And the reality is, a lot of the big international companies, Booking.com, for example, and all the hoteliers, most hoteliers use Booking.com, they're not properly compliant, but we get questioned. Long and short of it is, yes, there is challenges there. In terms of using of the device, the guest actually accepts terms and conditions, and we're done. But from a hotel operations perspective, I'm not saying you don't need to maybe refresh the information getting from the guest, but give the guest then the opportunity to upload a renewed copy of their passport or whatever online before they arrive. Use technology in that way. Don't ask me for information I've already given you to complete it again. That's one big gripe I've got is arrival cards on when you come into a country. I've applied for a visa. I've given you all the information. Why must I write down the exact same information again? Then some countries even got departure cards as well. Now again, fill in the same information. Why?
I think some hotel using recently from this 2nd to 10th February, 2nd to 6th in London and 6th to 10th in Paris. I used the Marriott and Crown Plaza and with a big MICE group. And I did not even given any single passport because all the passport detail copy, scan copy was sent to them prior. And that was in their system. The moment we reached, they given me the keys, distributed to them. Even I was having all the keys at the airport. So it was distributed at the flight, on the way. They all had their room keys straight, gone to the room, and they had wow experience. And same thing repeated in the Paris, where we stayed in the Crown Plaza. So because once every document has been uploaded to them, I think most of the hotel are now updating the system.
A lot of them are, but as I mentioned, and maybe it's more related to Africa. And I mean, I came here and they still asked me for a copy of my passport, but then again, I had never given it to them. The reality is, there's a lot of hotels groups that do get it right, and there's a lot of them out there that still don't. So it's just one of the examples that I made where if you use technology right, and some people do it, you actually get more face-to-face time and personal interaction. So it was an example. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but there's a lot of hotel groups out there that don't get it right yet.
So if I may add to what he's saying, you know, hotel chains, like I work for the Department Hotel Group, we have a lot of rules on data privacy and data protection, you know, because it's not just the guest data, it's also a lot of financial data because we have credit card information. People need to prepay before because if you cancel, we got to charge your card. So there are a lot of, you know, layers which we do in terms of protecting the guest data. So I fully agree with Barry. Once you've given your data, why did you give it again? Whatever you gave the last time is completely protected. There are several firewalls, there are ways we need to do, and we get employees to sign declarations, we get them to go through various training, and there are always, you know, I know for IHG, where there are guys checking on our servers. You'll be amazed, in a day, there are something like 20 to 30 hacker attacks on our databases every day, all right? So, and when you look into financial transactions like banks, you know, and they say if it's not secure, don't do your transaction. You don't do when a hacker's taken your data away. So it's quite a lot. The other thing, you know, that just to add, for example, which I find happening in India today, you've got something known as the DG Vault. So all your information like your driving license, your passport, your voter ID and all IDs, you can put into that. And when I went to you know, one of the airports and they said, show it to me. So I opened a photo, they said, sorry, a photo. You get onto the secure site and show it to me. And the best part is, so all those technologies are, you know, kind of coming forth. And yeah, that's how it's going. I have one question for you, though, and then we take one from two. Okay. So one is that, you know, of course, like you mentioned about hotels needing to change. You know, it's very easy to change the carpet and this because we put a life on it, say 6 years, and then I work the depreciation for the next 5 to 6 years, and I'm able to get that money to provide for this change. When I look at technology, I don't know, you know. For example, earlier we had 3G, and within a year it was 4G. And by the time I'm thinking of going on 4G, we're already talking of 5G. So when you're talking on hotels, you know, these changes cost a lot of money. And the second thing is, you know, how do I change for waste? I'll tell you, in my hotel, we were using Windows XP PCs about 3 years back. It was still 2 years of usable life, and a big challenge for us was, what are you going to do with those 250 PCs? Because you got to literally, you know, give them away somebody, and people, and they're no takers today. You know, it's great to say, donate your old PCs to an old school. I mean, those guys say, sorry, the net is too slow on these PCs. So we actually had a massive challenge trying to just get rid of 250 PCs. So any light on that, since you work also with the developing countries?
So let's talk about that. So my background is hotel operations. So I know exactly what you're saying. It's very easy. You know that depending per hotel type, every couple of years you have to do a soft refurb, you budget for it, and you allocate. Technology, I 100% agree. It's growing at an exponential rate. We don't know what's happening. We don't know where it's going. Number one, educate yourself. Research. Yes, the research is going to be limited to a year or two, maybe 3. So look what's coming. What are people already talking about? Because what they're talking about now is going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years. So no, that's coming. What they're not talking about is already in development for the next 5 to 10 years. We spoke about going to Mars. It's possible. And so many things from a medical field as well. There's so many diseases that can be cured already, but pharmaceutical companies making too much money on the drugs, so they're holding all of that back. The same with technology. So the reality is it's growing at an extremely fast rate. It's very difficult to budget for and plan for. Agreed. My question to you is, so now you're scared because you're not knowing what to buy and what to budget for. My question is, what is going to happen if you do not invest in anything because you don't know what to invest in? What's going to happen to your business? If you do not invest in the technology, and let's talk about something simple, Wi-Fi. If you do not have proper fast Wi-Fi in your property, do you think the guest is going to come to your property after they've noticed that, or once the word is out there? Forget about coming there and experiencing. The TripAdvisor and all the social media tools are massive. Guests don't have to come to you anymore to know what they're going to find. So I understand the predicament, and I'm turning the question to you, what's going to happen if you do not invest in anything?
You will definitely invest, but you know, it's by the time you decide to invest in something, there's something else on the horizon.
Okay, so why is that?
Yeah.
Why is that? The reason for that is that the decision-making process in the hospitality trade in general, and especially big groups like yourself, is too long. There's too much red tape. So because we're taking a freaking year to make a decision, when you did your original research, you already lost a year. So you're falling behind. So the whole thing is making that decision-making process shorter. Establish a department in a group environment that their job is to investigate what technology is up and coming. They are specialists in their field, like we are. Establish a department focusing on that, making sure you make the right decisions. Making that process shorter, and then not losing out because you took a year.
Fantastic. In fact, Barry, you'll be happy to know that the Department Hotel Group has decided to go in for one of the latest technologies called Cisco Meraki. And Cisco actually worked with ISG to develop this whole technology. And the best part is the Wi-Fi. It's like available on demand on tap. You don't need to put in, a lot of gadgets. You don't need sign-in, sign-outs and all. And if you're an IG Rewards Club member, you just enter a hotel, which is an IG hotel, and you're connected to the net. And we kind of gone in for it. Huge investment. But as you know, hotel owners need to get convinced rather than the chain.
I was going to say, a franchise environment is quite different.
Right, I agree with you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks. I think you answered partially my question. This was the same question. What's the pace at which hotels need to change to actually invest in technology? And the question was answered. But I think just to add on the thing you mentioned about passports being requested at the hotel desks, I feel that sometimes it's because of security reasons, you see, the perception. So unless the hotel upgrades itself to a level that it's able to, get your details as soon as you arrive, then you will not need it. But many of the hotels here that we observe are taking the copies. But
no, 100%. Again, it was an example.
Yes.
And thinking towards the future, thinking in many countries, and talking about integrations, yes, and I understand the security risks, but let's think about this for 10 seconds. When in most countries, a person needs a visa, right? So you go online or you go to the embassy or whatever it may be. You give your visa information. One of the things they're always asking, where are you staying, what hotel? So why can't that be integrated? Why, when my passport is scanned at immigration, why can it not sit there and already be linked to so they know what hotel I'm staying in? Just on the top of my head, one idea. We spoke about PPPs yesterday, public and private partnerships. That's the only way we're going to improve a lot of things. And I can talk for days about different things and discussions that I've had with different governments in Africa about these things. But the reality is, technology is there. Technology is needed. It's not going to go away, and you need to adapt and embrace it, because if you don't embrace it, you're going to have an issue.
So just one final point is, in your opinion, based on your experience, what is the normal time you would say a hotel needs to upgrade its technology processes? Say once a year, once in 2 years?
So I think that
Once in
period
3
is
years.
coming shorter all the time because of what is available out there. It used to be every 5 to 10 years. I think now, forget about just saying upgrading, but I think on a permanent basis, you need to be analyzing and assessing where am I compared to especially my ComSat in the region, and making sure you do stay ahead and plan for it. I agree with the fact that this whole period is becoming shorter and shorter and shorter because of the developments happening. But I think the main thing is make sure you are assessing on a regular basis, and I say regular basis, actually every couple of months, that you are staying with the trends and the needs and wants of your guests.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. So, not really a question, so it won't take much of your time, but it's an observation which will probably augment what you said, what Lisa pointed out, and partly what also said, sir. About 10 years ago, I was, as a student, I was doing sort of a small project from one of the better known hotels in Singapore. Nick will identify with that. And one of the suggestions we as a group gave the hotel, and which they implemented 10 years ago, or 11. Whenever you ask for a passport, and hotels do ask for a passport, you know, at the bottom of the last page, if you look at it very carefully, there's something like a barcode, which actually covers all the information in the passport. So what we told them was, invest in card readers, front desk, just rub that through, it picks up a lot of information which can be populated in your reservation form, auto-populated. And then only certain details need to be filled in by the guest and probably sign up the dotted line. It saved them a lot of time. They actually use that process, and we also use it in many hotels in India, for pre-check-in. And then the receptionist or a team will actually do the real check-in in the guest room. So on the way through the elevator and walking along the lobby, there's a chance to make contact and talk about the facilities of the hotel. You spoke about something like, you know, booking a spa treatment and this and that, and it works there. Coming back to what Lisa said, something like solar power, I've seen this happen in a small hotel in India, a standalone hotel in India, not using solar power, but in the gymnasium where you have the cycling machine, they give you the option there of charging your cell phone or charging your laptop there. And just to promote it as a freebie, they said, if you can spend 30 minutes on this, and after you finish charging your laptop or your phone, and you're now sending power back into the grid, we'll give you a cup of coffee or muffins or something like that. It works so well. In fact, it's more like a CSR, or, you know, hinging on volunteerism. You're actually volunteering to give back to the system without any cost. And
100%. I think it's fantastic. And the reality is I only have half an hour. I can talk for days about these things and the different solutions. And I just grabbed a couple of examples quickly. And I see we're very hooked on this whole passport example I used, because it comes up with everybody asking a question. But again, there is a lot of things a hotel can do from an operational perspective, from a planning perspective, from a marketing perspective. There's so much one can do. I just had half an hour to talk about a couple of examples. And if you guys want me back, and I can talk for a whole day and talk about solutions and ideas and everything. But
Okay, we'll take one last question and then wrap up.
Yeah, I guess one enough time, all my questions have been already answered. I just wanted people to know that India is going to be ahead of the curve. We are going to have facial recognition software installed in the airports, and it's going to be a one-time check-in for a lifetime. And after that, you just print your boarding pass and get onto your plane.
so that's for departure.
Yes, absolutely.
Because there's a lot of these electronic gates already around the world. So how would that work with your visa?
Well, I guess if you see, even now, there's a lot of investment made in the e-visas, which are getting improved. I would say that even, particularly for Indian travelers at the point of time now, not for the international travelers, Indian travelers are shocked that they don't have to fill up any form during departure or arrival, which is completely news to us, right? So I'm sure there's going to be more improvements for the visitors as well.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much, Barry. That was really involving. You know, I've never
That's
seen so many questions in any session. No, we'll hold that during the break. So Barry, thank you very much. And